Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Ward 1 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. We'll be starting at 5:30. If you'd like to give public comment on today's agenda, please fill out the public comment form up front and return it to me. Thank you. Chair, if you're ready, it's 5:30.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Callie. I will call this meeting to order. Please call roll and verify the presence of quorum.
Dalton Kaysen,
Here.
Michael Steedman, Shonda Golden is absent, Sunny Allen, Claudia Davis, Brian Harvey, Maya Johnson is absent, Raymond Sherwood, Antonio Taylor. There is a quorum of the Ward 1 Neighborhood Advisory Board.
Thank you. We will move on to the first thing here, which is A21, which is public comment.
Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. We do have one registered public comment from Dalton Kaysen.
Thank you. I just have a prepared statement here on data centers. I appreciate the chance to weigh in on data centers. I understand the one we are speaking on today appears small in scale. So what I say may not be relevant to the specific project, but I want to use this opportunity to speak on data centers in general and be on the record where I and many of my other neighbors stand on this issue. While I understand the appeal of bringing new investment, we need to weigh the benefits against the cost, especially here in our desert community. Data centers use enormous resources. Many of the cooling systems often consume millions of gallons of water every day. In a region that struggles with drought, the water of the residents and the ecosystems is something we can't spare lightly. This isn't the right climate for a water-intensive industry. On top of water, most data centers use huge amounts of electricity, in some cases comparable to tens of thousands of homes. They create very few permanent jobs, often fewer than 50. The economic benefit of the community is minimal, while the strain on the grid and the water system is real. If these large tech companies want to invest here with their data centers, they should meet higher standards, air-based or closed-loop cooling systems that don't consume local water, renewable energy to cover their power demands, and clear commitments to help strengthen local infrastructure. Otherwise, we risk giving up precious resources for very little return. At the end of the day, we should welcome growth, but not at the expense of our water security or community resilience. These proposals usually don't balance those priorities. I urge the city, county, and state government to either place strict and clear conditions on approval or deny all new data centers altogether. Our local government gives us the only agency we have as residents against these wealthy tech companies and their common overreach into our communities, privacy, and cost of living. We shouldn't cave to flowery lobbying language or meager attempts of compromise. Every new approval on a data center makes the next ones harder and harder to deny. I urge our elected officials to enact a ban on any future data center approvals that do not meet specific and strict criteria that protects our environment, our residents, and their wallets. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalton. Next up, we have an attendee on Zoom. Damien, when you're ready, state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, hello. My name is Damien Barrientos. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. Okay, first I just want to say I agree with the last guy that was speaking. A data center would be a great idea for Reno, Nevada, but only if they can find an energy efficient way to do so. While we do have the Truckee River, Lake Tahoe, and Pyramid Lake, we it's still a desert climate, and I think that they should find a way to, if possible, create energy to kick back to the power grid and use recycled water. What I actually wanted to talk about today, though, was Ward 1 specifically. I live in Ward 1, and it's specifically where I live is just there's a lot of trash, cigarette butts, car fluids on the street, and I was hoping we could do something to see an improvement. The sidewalks also like severely damaged, cracked, and chipped, and so I was hoping we could see like I know we just got the groundhog, I think is what it's called, the mini hog or something like that. I was hoping maybe it could come around Quinsley Street. Sorry if I mispronounced that. A little bit more often, and yeah, I would just like to see my not my area, but where I live, and all of Ward 1 cleaned up a little bit more from trash and cigarettes to pet poop and street lights and sidewalk damage improved. And that's all I have to say for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Is there anyone else in chambers or on Zoom who would like to make public comment? No, seeing none, we can move on from public comment.
All righty. Thank you for your comments. At this time, we have no more public comment. We will proceed to item A3, which is approval for agenda for possible action. Thank you. Can I get a second? Okay,
Board members, please make sure to state your name before you speak. That was Michael Steedman with the motion and Antonio Taylor with the second.
all right. All those in, or wait, you do that part. Sorry, right?
No problem. All those in favor?
Perfect. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now we can move on to A5, which is council liaison report.
I think we skipped A4, approval of the
Oh,
minutes.
sorry about that. A4, approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to, on statement makes a motion to approve the minutes
Thank
from
you.
last meeting.
Okay, can I get a second?
Ratio, what I second?
Okay,
Discussion,
any comments, discussions,
change.
changes? No? Okay,
All those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, sorry about that. Now we'll move on to A5, council liaison reports.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. Thank you so much for being here. I am Councilwoman Taylor, your liaison for the night. I wanted to bring your attention to the river cleanup that is happening this Saturday. I believe it is the mayor's biggest little river cleanup, and you can meet in Wingfield Park on that. The Junior Ranger program is happening at Paradise Park on September 20th. And if you haven't been to the antique fair, that takes place around the new Locomotion Plaza around September 21st this month. On the agenda for council this Wednesday, we will be hearing items on ADUs and property tax. With that, I'll take any questions. Thank you very much.
All righty, let me flip my page here. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Taylor. The next item is A6, which is staff liaison report. Staff liaison Callie.
Hi, everyone. Callie Shy, Agenda Coordinator for the record. I just wanted to remind you all that we will be having the board member training next Monday, September 15th here at 5:30 p.m. The first hour will cover some general boards and commissions information, and the second hour is NAB-specific training, so I highly recommend coming if you are available. The second item that I wanted to talk about is the new home of the city's internal boards and commissions. This is the public meeting portal that you might be familiar with. So if you go to reno.gov/boards, you'll be taken to this boards and committees page. This board has its very own page here with a lot of really helpful information. It also has your information, member information. If you wanted to contact any of your fellow board members, if you wanted to contact me, you could click on my name. My phone number is there. My contact information is there. If anyone is interested in joining the board, or when the time comes for any of you to reapply, you can click this apply for membership button right here. And then we have a link to all of the meetings here. So you can see the meeting, you can see the HTML agenda, and the packet, and all that good stuff. So this is a really great resource. Everything's in one place, even if you're interested in other boards when they're meeting, where their documents are. So again, that's reno.gov/boards. And that is all for me. So we are ready to move on. Yeah, go for it.
So anyways, we've talked about future, we need to get more people here.
Sure.
You have ideas. You know, we need to get out there in the public. So, you know, I'm used to meetings where there's a lot of people, angry or not, but it's quite nice. Also too, we keep bringing up, we want to find out what's with RTC, arts and culture, the Nevada Cares campus, and bring where's the police department, tell us what's going on down here. So there needs to be more stuff. I'm used to that in the NAB meetings.
Sure.
And how can we go about that? Because we keep bringing up the same things and nothing seems to change.
Yeah, understandable. I appreciate your patience. There's been a little bit of a switchover with me coming on and things moving around a little bit. We do have a new process to get your requests routed, so we are working on them. It's just us getting back and getting everything together, but I do have all your requests for RTC, CARES Campus, all of those are in the works. I will say for RPD will not be coming to any additional NAB meetings. That's direction we've received. So you won't be seeing them, but we will be checking on all of your other requests.
So have, what's that? It's not the PD, it's the, Downtown Reno Partnership.
Reno Partnership.
Because that would help with the trash and everything else, and what are they addressing? Because it's changed a lot. Also code.
Code
So
enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're fun people to know.
Okay, noted. We will get your requests routed. Anything else for me?
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Staff Liaison Callie. We will now be moving on to development projects. Okay.
Alrighty, let me get this presentation shared for us. Chair, do you want to read that project number and name for me?
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking at B1, which is ABN 26-00003. Garreau Street
Sorry.
abandonment. We're gonna have a presentation from the developer. Thank you.
Good evening, Ward One NAB. Happy to be here tonight. Thank you. My name is Candace Stoll. I'm with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony in our Planning and Community Development Department. And here tonight to present information about our request for an abandonment application to the city of Reno. As you see on the next slide, just a very simple vicinity map of what we're talking about. So this is related to the portion of Garreau Street that is north of Kunsley. Garreau Street goes all the way down to East Second, but we're only talking about the portion of Garreau Street that is north of Kunsley. And you may think that it goes all the way to the river, but it actually doesn't. The next slide is a close-up view. In green, you'll see the proposed abandonment area application that we've submitted to the city. It's approximately 13,819 square feet. The Garreau Street that's located there does not actually go all the way to the river. It terminates at that traffic circle. That traffic circle is actually on the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. When we started developing the Tribal Health Center back in 2004, we merged a parcel that was next door where that traffic circle is now. So Garreau Street does not actually go all the way to the river. It seems like it does because logically we don't have any boundaries there or fencing. So it terminates the traffic circle. On the right-hand side or on the east side, you'll see our Tribal Health Center. And on the west side, you'll see the the employee parking for our Tribal Health Center. We picked up that parcel in 2022. We also own the south parking lot, which is 100 Garreau, which is south of the Tribal Health Center. And then also just point of reference, the John Champion Park is west of our Tribal Health Center parking lot. So that's the area we're talking about. Why are we submitting this application to the city? We could go to the next slide. What we are proposing is this, with this abandonment application, which again is a very small area. We obviously own property on both sides of Garreau Street. It will help us to develop more of a health and wellness campus. Our Tribal Health Center is busting at the seams. We need more room to develop. We need a safer campus for our employees and our patients. And we also believe that abandonment of Garreau Street in this location is actually, ironically, going to be a traffic safety improvement. And that is why we think this would also be positive, regardless of the benefits to the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. This is a very tricky intersection. The stop sign that was on Garreau Street previously was removed by the city. There's now the stop sign that was on Kunsley was taken away. The three-way stop where you had to stop on Garreau Street as you're going north, that was removed. So now you have a lot of traffic east and west on Kunsley with high speeds. And people coming out of Giroux Street are employees and people that are just parking on that street. It's a very tricky intersection, not very safe. So we believe if we remove that portion of Giroux Street and we have the Tribal Health Center employees actually going into the parking lot, there's an entrance on Quinsley Street. That's going to be a lot safer. There's a much better sight distance. So we do believe that abandoning Giroux Street is an important traffic safety measure for us as well as the city. But again, we do believe that this will provide more control of the area. There have been many incidents at the Tribal Health Center over the years for any properties that are along the river, as you might imagine. So that's why we're coming forward with this application tonight. On the next slide, you'll see some of the photos. This is the manhole in the middle of the street for the storm drain. That storm drain goes all the way into the river. We would certainly protect that. We've gotten the comments back from engineering. We would not put any structures on that. We would certainly protect that and would record that easement if city council approves that abandonment. And then on the bottom is just a photo of that traffic circle. And if you can see to the right, there are steps there that go up to the Tribal Health Center. So again, we're trying to integrate these different properties with more of an integrated development pattern, whether that's in the future some landscaping in this area. We don't know yet, but we do think having more control, since we have property on both sides, is going to be a positive. And again, I think traffic safety wise, this is going to be an improvement for the city. So that is in a nutshell what we're here tonight before Ward 1 NAB, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Hi there, Sunny Allen. Just a couple of questions about you said that you guys acquired the area where the employees park in 2022.
Yes.
It looks like quite a bit of it is unused. Is that correct?
It used to be what we call the woodlot. So the area that's undeveloped or unimproved, I think where there was a lot of storage, it's really wood industrial. And then you'll see there's some improved parking. We do intend to improve that parking area. There is 500-year floodplain that goes through a portion of that property. We would not be putting any development in that area. But that was the condition when we purchased the property in 2022. We cleaned it up. There was a lot of debris on that property from the previous owner. And that frankly is what we've been doing as we've acquired more properties along the Truckee River. We've been redeveloping them. Obviously, our Tribal Health Center is the poster child for that. And then our Walmart property. We've also acquired the parcels along Sunshine Lane. So it's a continuous improvement and redevelopment of those properties along the river, which we think is important, obviously for the Reno-Sparks Indian Colony, and is also important for the Truckee River.
So when you say that you guys are sort of busting at the seams, are it parking for the clientele for the center is on the other side?
Correct, yes.
Do you anticipate using some of this other parcel to increase that?
So the west parking lot, what you see is really just for employees.
Okay, but
So
you
all the
have
pay-
enough on the other side
Yes.
for clientele?
For the clients, always go into the main parking lot for the health center. Yes.
Okay, and one last question. You said that there's an entrance on Coonsley?
For the west park,
For the employee parking?
there's a curb cut.
And so there's just one entrance in, one out?
There's two. The current entrance that is used by the employees is off of Giroux Street. That's where we have gated entrance and it opens up for employees. There's also a curb cut on Coonsley for that parcel. And what we would like to do is probably do some kind of a pilot project to have the employees come in and out of that, because I think that's going to be a lot safer for everybody.
Off of Giroux that?
Off of Coonsley,
Off of Coonsley, okay.
right? So
they-
we would not be coming in off of Giroux Street anymore.
Okay, that's all.
Any other questions or comments?
Street, was it ever used for like emergency purposes, fire, safety, ambulance?
Absolutely. We would make sure, we have no plans to start fencing it or anything if city council approves the abandonment, but we would make sure if we did in the future that we would have emergency access provided, because whether it's river rescue or other first responders, we obviously want to make sure that they have that access to the river. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Questions or comments on this item?
So that land will become part of the Indian colony.
Yes, correct.
Okay, great.
And I think it would be great.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? No? All righty. Thank you for your time and your presentation. I'll open this up now to public comment.
I have not received any public comment for this item. If there's anyone in chambers or Zoom, not seeing anyone on Zoom.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
We've got a hand raised.
Oh, perfect.
Damien, did you want to provide comment on this item?
Yeah, I drive past the Tribal Health Center a lot, and I think they've done a great job with keeping the area clean and tidy. And I would like to support that. I think that's a good idea. So I like.
Thank you, Damien.
Goes to planning.
Mhm.
How do we, as a board, say we're in favor of it? You know, we can make the findings, or we don't. What goes to planning from us as a board? Because right now we listen to it, but we haven't said anything.
Sure. Right
So
now,
they need to find out that we see that this is a good idea.
yes.
So how do we go about that?
Right now, planning's development project review form is one way to do that. That's where you open the form and you can identify yourself as a NAB member. Happy to share that link. We are working on a project review worksheet for NAB members specifically to fill out to give their feedback. That's something we'll talk about a little
Used to
bit.
be way
Sure.
back in the.
Yeah, I wasn't running the NABs at that time, but we are working on one. I believe it will be distributed at the board member training on Monday. If
Okay.
not, it'll definitely be ready by the time this NAB reconvenes again. But I would say the development project review form is the best way to do that. I don't know that link off the top of my head, but it's on the agenda. Yeah, okay. So I would check out that link. If there's any issues with it, you can let me know. But that's the best way to do it right now, before we get that development project review worksheet distributed.
And just apologies for not mentioning this. This will actually go straight to city council. And I believe it's going to be October 8th before city council. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, if there's no other public comment, then we will move on to item B2. Is there a presentation for item B2 LDC 26-00009 Lumen
Yes.
Data Center?
Mr. Chair, we do have a presentation. I'm gonna need to, I believe our presenter is on Zoom. So I am just going to make sure they have permission to talk. Mario, if you're able to unmute your mic.
Yes,
The presentation shared in just a second here. All right, Mario, can you see that on your screen?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, let me know when you need me to switch slides.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Mario Targarosa. I am with IMEG Consultants. Also on the line, we have Del Ertzner with Lumen Technologies. But tonight, I appreciate the time here. We're going to be discussing an existing facility for Lumen Technologies. It's a gateway building. I know there's some thoughts that this is a new data center, and then we just want to bring this to you that it is an existing facility. So please, next slide. This building, as you can see in the background, this building was built in 1999 as a digital data center. It's actually a telecommunications building with a very small portion as data transfer. It was originally built, as I said, in 1999. Over the years, Lumen Technologies has purchased the company. They are not wanting to change the use of this building. Unfortunately, during the transition of the purchase of this company, the business license had expired, and it was unfortunate they did not know about it. Once this was brought to our attention, it was required by the city of Reno to go through the conditional use permit. Next slide, please. Right here we show the vicinity map. The site is 220 Gardner Street. It is an industrial area with some residential adjacent to it. Again, we are not asking to expand in any way. We are just requesting to extend or initialize the building permit or building license, business license. Next slide, please. Here we show an existing site plan landscaping. Again, we're not trying to change anything. We're showing there's existing foliage. You know, this site does operate 24/7, 365 days a year. Again, we view it as a telecommunications gateway. So it's more for landlines, phone, and voice. Again, with us, very small portion of only being a data center. This building does not house people on site. There are maintenance staff that may visit the site on occasion for any small maintenance items, maybe there for a couple hours a day. Otherwise, we view this building as a critical infrastructure for the city of Reno. It does provide a lot of, again, phone services, mobile services, communication throughout the city. Next slide, please. That is just our contact information, and I think really this is I think Damian Dalton had some concerns with water usage and electrical usage. I just want to reiterate one more time that again, this facility's been operating since 1999. There is no intent to change its use or increase any water usage or electrical usage. So we want to make sure that we're a good neighbor within the community. And I think we have been, this building has been for a very long time, and we would just like to continue that. And with that, I would be open for any questions.
Okay, Dalton D. Kaysen for the record. I just wanted to mention that, yeah, I'm totally aware that this is not exactly what I was describing at all, and that this has existed for quite a while, and this isn't exactly what I was hitting on. It's just a coincidence that this was on the agenda when I had those statements prepared. But yeah, any other questions?
Yeah. Ray Shore for the record. I just want to say, I actually live right down the street from Gardner, about a block away from this facility. Most people don't even know this facility is there. They're a good neighbor. They got low impact. They actually moved in a couple months before I did. So we've been there both 26 years, and they're so low impact, most people don't even know they're there. And their facilities actually look a lot better than some of the residential lots right around it. So personally, they've been a great neighbor to us. You don't notice any power draws or nothing. There's no power surges or brownouts, nothing like that coming from this facility. So as far as I'm concerned, they're good neighbors. I don't see a reason why we shouldn't.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Anthony Taylor for the record. So yeah, this is because of a merger and acquisition from a smaller company to a bigger company, and now because of the issue that it was like an overseeing issue. So it's like having a Costco membership lapsed. So basically, yeah, it should be renewed, and it's low impact and stuff like that. So, well, thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. We will now open this item up to public comment.
I do not have any public comment cards. Is there anyone in Zoom or in chambers who would like to make comment? I am not seeing any, Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will now move on to business items. The first business item is C1, Childcare Ordinance.
Good evening. Grace McAdin, Senior Management Analyst for the record. And I'm here to kind of give a brief presentation on childcare facilities and what we're doing regarding that. So just to set some background really quick, I think anyone who has children or even knows people who have children know that childcare is really difficult to come by right now in Nevada. Approximately 72% of Nevadans live in a childcare desert. What that basically means is there's more children than there are daycare spots. A lot of that's due to, we have a lot of rural areas in the state, but definitely Reno, there's parts of Reno that are also considered childcare deserts. Nevada experienced a 55% decline from 2018 to 2024. Obviously, the COVID years are in there. We saw a lot of childcare providers close during that time. And then Nevada is the eighth least affordable state for infant care. So, some really kind of big issues, making it, a lot of barriers for people who are trying to find childcare or open up childcare facilities. And then in July 25th of this year, Council initiated a text amendment to try to remove some of those barriers that we see for childcare providers. Just anything that we can do with our limited scope to encourage more childcare providers or remove those barriers that we see. So currently, like I said, our scope is really limited. We don't license the childcare facilities. That happens at the state level. We do give them a business license, and then we have uses in our development code that regulate these childcare providers. And so when we got the direction from council, we took a look, what can we do? What are the barriers we have? What's currently required? So currently in Reno Municipal Code, we have kind of three umbrella uses that regulate childcare. We have in-home childcare. This is anywhere from 5 to 12 children. It's an accessory use, so anyone who has a residential home could open up this in-home childcare. We have workplace childcare, and that's accessory to a primary business. So some of these large companies like Patagonia or IGT, sometimes they offer childcare as a perk to their employees. And then we have childcare centers. These are the larger Blue Kangaroo type centers that they're usually larger in scale. They have the whole site, the whole building. It's that primary use. And so when we talk about barriers for providers, going back to those three umbrella uses we have, in-home childcare requires a minor conditional use permit in all zoning districts. And then there's also additional standards that they have to meet. Workplace childcare also has a minor conditional use permit in all of those zoning districts. And then the childcare center requires a conditional use permit in residential zones and additional standards. And we'll go into some more detail with what those permits require and what they mean, but just an additional step for those childcare providers that they have to go through. So for those in-home childcare providers, a minor conditional use permit, this is about a 30-day process. It's a staff review. It costs about $4,300. And then one of the bigger complaints that we've heard is there's no guarantee for approval. So they can do all of these things, spend all of this money, and it's not just the $4,000. They typically have to spend money on a designer, a consultant to put these application packages together for them. So they're spending thousands of dollars, and they might get turned down. And that was a really big thing that, barrier for them of preventing them from opening up these childcare providers. And not to mention, in-home childcare is anywhere from 5 to 12 kids. And so these are really, really small businesses that they're running accessory to their primary home. They don't know how to go through these processes. They can, they're trying to figure out all of the red tape, and it was really difficult for them to navigate all of the government agencies just to watch 5 kids during the day. Then we have workplace childcare, similar requirements, 30 days, same price. And again, no guarantee of approval. And so you have these people trying to offer a perk for their employees, why would we go through all of this hassle? And then you have the childcare center. It's a little bit longer of a process. These are the full, childcare centers though. And if they're in a residential neighborhood, people might want to weigh in, see what's going to be built next to them. This is about a 65-day process and almost a $5,000 fee. And again, no guarantee of approval. This has to go to Planning Commission. And so what we heard from these providers, if you could just tell me what the requirements are, we'll meet those requirements and then we can have a guarantee of approval. So when we looked at what we should put in our code, we looked at the past minor conditional use permits, the past entitlements that have been done for childcare providers, and we said, what if we conditioned for these providers? And let's just put that in code. If we are always conditioning that the lighting has to be turned off on a certain time, or certain traffic requirements, if we're always conditioning the same thing, then let's just put that into code so that they know upfront what they have to do. And so we looked at in-home and workplace. We removed that minor conditional use permit, but we added in those development standards. So they're not going through that process, but we're hopeful that, with this draft or with any amendments that are recommended through this public outreach process, we'll mitigate some of the concerns people might have. And then for a childcare center, we thought it probably makes sense to have those be reviewed if they're in a residential neighborhood. I think anyone who has 65 kids or however many kids next door to them, the traffic, the lighting, the noise, that's pretty impactful. So it should be reviewed, but we reduced it from a conditional use permit to a minor conditional use permit. Still has to be noticed, still has to go through that additional process. All right, so right now we're in our public outreach phase. So kind of a brief presentation, but we're trying to get as much public comment and feedback as we can. What would your concerns be if a childcare provider opened up next door to you, whether it be in-home, anywhere from 5 kids, or what if it was a childcare center? What would you be concerned about? Or maybe you have one next door to you and you can tell us what that looks like. After this public outreach process, we'll go to all the NABs in September. Then we will also have 2 virtual public stakeholder meetings in October. Then we will go to Planning Commission, probably October, November timeframe, and then City Council winter of this year, and then hopefully some sort of an adoption of some sort of zoning code based on all of the feedback we get. So that's concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any questions?
I do have one. Ray Sherwood for the record. So if we remove the MUP requirements, does that mean the neighborhood doesn't get any input as to whether or not whether how small or large they are, whether or not they actually get to start up in the neighborhood?
Yes, so let's go back to the uses that we would remove the minor conditional use permits for. That's both workplace and in-home. Both of those are accessory uses. So workplace has to be accessory to a business. So let's say you live next door. I'm trying to think of a good example. You live next door to Patagonia and they're opening up a childcare center within their workplace. That business has to be permitted. So they have to first establish Patagonia before they can establish the childcare. So yes, we would remove that minor conditional use permit for the childcare element, but they have to get licensed and permitted and go through all of their steps to first establish their business. As far as in-home childcare, it can only be up to 12 children. So we're maxed out at 12 kids.
All right. My questions for concern is yes, you only got 5 to 12 kids, but if you got 5 to 12 of these popping up in your neighborhood, that causes could cause a lot of issues too. So if we move the MUPs, then there's could be an oversaturation in the neighborhoods that could be detrimental to those neighborhoods.
Definitely. I will say, and great point. We are very far off from oversaturation because there's such a need for childcare. So we are a far ways from that. But the hope is that if you did have 5 of them offering daycare for 5 children, it's so nominal in an impact. I mean, you could have 5 kids, your own kids there. And then it would reduce the larger daycares from popping up because you have, so many of them speckled throughout neighborhoods. And it really is a neighborhood use at the end of the day to have a couple in-home daycares. Hopefully wouldn't be a big impact, but definitely open to, if you see any concerns with that, open to how we could fix that.
Brian Harvey, was there any lessons learned regarding the non-approvals? Like, was there legitimate reasons for the non-approvals in the past? And have you taken those in, or was it just simply someone somewhere said, I don't like this, and they just canceled it?
Yeah, interestingly, and a great question. It's difficult to track. A lot of times what will happen is we might just not be getting these applications because they're a little bit kind of scared off from the process or the fees. But a lot of times we'll see that they're just withdrawn. I'm not sure, especially going back years and years, I'm not sure if that was due to neighborhood pressure or if they just didn't have the funds or, what it may be, but a lot of those applications were actually withdrawn and they never were officially denied, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure what the reasonings were.
Oh, and just one follow-up question, like the cost associated for these 3 buckets, uh, you would think it would be more of a ratio from like a small mom and pop to a child care center, and there isn't in my estimation. And why is that?
Yeah, the processes we have, they don't account for scale. So you guys will see a conditional use permit for anything from the data center you saw this evening to, maybe it's a large child care center that's going to be offering care to 100 kids and could totally change the look or feel of a neighborhood. So the conditional use permits that you guys see change in scale based on what they're asking for. And same thing for this is, we have these application processes. We've tried to fit these in there with what we thought made sense. But I think for a minor conditional use permit for 5 kids is, that's a big investment for someone to make.
Right. Well, okay. Sorry about this. Is there any looking at that, like the reduction of cost associated with, let's just say the first bucket?
We don't have a smaller application they could apply for that would fit that. And that's what is difficult for us is we can't really make up the cost or reduce their cost. And there's some reasonings for that, but it gets very complicated with how we can, credit people or reduce their costs. But we would have to either put them in a smaller bucket, which doesn't exist, or just remove the requirement for it. There's not a lot of in between there that we have to work with, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Anthony Taylor. I got a question off the top of your head. With this process, how many childcare centers are in the pipeline right now? Yeah.
Full childcare centers?
Yes. Yes.
For any of these?
Any of these 3 or full? How many of them are in the pipeline? Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Currently, we don't have any in the pipeline as far as, they might have been entitled and just were never built. We don't necessarily track what eventually gets built. We're just tracking what's either been approved or hasn't been approved. There hasn't been a childcare center approved in the last, I want to say 3 years.
Ooh, wow.
In-home, there's only been 1 approved in the last couple of years that I could find. And I don't know if it was actually ever completed.
And do you believe that with this ordinance, do you believe that there will be more like there will be an onslaught or a flood necessary? And do you believe if the cost variance will still hold people, potential like mothers, fathers, mom, pops, or any like corporates down from applying and stuff?
I'm hopeful that hopefully people just hear what we're doing and they get excited about maybe they've been wanting to open up a childcare facility. I do think though our scope is so limited. They still have so many requirements. They have to meet with the county and the state with regards to Northern Nevada Public Health. They have to do inspections, make sure it's safe, which all very important things. And then the state also has to do licensing for the childcare provider themselves. All important and necessary things, but when you start pulling at the thread of what's required to open a childcare facility, you realize it's very complicated, time burdensome, and cost burdensome. This is a drop in the bucket. It's important, and it hopefully encourages other agencies to follow suit of how we can make it easier. I think I'm hopeful that we get a couple after this ordinance passes. Make the answer to your question very long.
Okay. And lastly, are you, with this ordinance, are you taking best practices? What
Mhm.
cities or municipalities are you taking best practices from?
We definitely looked regionally because that always makes a lot of sense to say, what are Sparks in the county doing? We should look at them first. If it doesn't make sense, we can look elsewhere, but we've looked within the state because ultimately we have the same state laws that we have to abide by, and the same process, right? The state regulates childcare for everyone, Las Vegas, Clark County, Henderson, and then us up here in the north. So it's easy to look at some of those partners and see what they're doing. But then we always look at cities that are similar in size to us, Boise, Salem. We look at larger cities as well, even though sometimes it's not super applicable. But for something like childcare, it doesn't necessarily matter the scope of it. But those are some of the ones that we've looked at: Henderson, Clark County, Sparks, Washoe, Boise.
Okay, great.
Okay. And
And if you remove the minor use permit, the fee stays the same or it goes away?
It would go away.
So the two top ones would have a different fee or no fee?
They would go straight to building permit. So there's fees associated with building permits, but there would be no additional review
It
fee.
wouldn't be, okay. And is there anything built in to require them to be licensed by the state?
Yes, through our business licensing process, they have to verify that they have that state license.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
okay, any other questions, comments? No, I just want to say thank you. It seems like it's super big issue for working families, so thank you for the work you're putting in.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Okay, now, let's see. Do we do public comment on the business items
Yes.
as well? Okay.
That being said, I do not have any public comment.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Then we will move on to item C2, Good Neighbors Warming Center update.
Hi, yeah, Ilya Arbitman, for the record, here with, Ben Castro. Just a quick note before we start, we did do a round about the warming center at all of the NABs earlier this year, and we wanted to come to this NAB, but because of the, hiatus, the timing did not work out. So I wish we could have been here sooner because this was actually the, ward that the warming centers were located in. So obviously we would have loved to come to you guys, but it was just some scheduling issues prevented us from doing that. We are going to present to you now about a project we did this past winter that we are also planning to do again this winter. I'm gonna let Ben get it started here, give you guys an intro and kind of what the scope of the project was, and there'll be plenty of time for questions afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. Good evening, everybody. Ben Castro for the record. I'm the Executive Director of RISE. So this project, this was our pilot project, as Ilya mentioned, launched this last winter. You can see all of the community members and community organizations that we were involved with. Some of the biggest heavy hitters were obviously the 4 downtown churches, which was the United Methodists, the Lutherans, the Good Shepherd, Trinity, the Episcopalians, and St. Thomas Aquinas. I noticed that Father Chuck is here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and the Methodists. Right?
And so my apologies. We've never met in person. So I didn't recognize you. My apologies. Ooh, is this gonna work for me?
PDF.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So began in 2024. Again, the Interfaith Coalition had been hosting candlelight vigils for those who had passed that were unsheltered for the past few years. This past year, we were finally able to get together and actually coordinate a lot of fast-moving parts. Yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about that except for providing emergency shelters during the coldest months of the year. Next slide, please. So the partnerships, the Downtown Faith Leaders, the Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality, numerous mutual aid groups. I do want to mention them all. Hampton House, Laundry to the People, Family Soup Mutual Aid, Northern Nevada Harm Reduction, Reno Hearts U, and there's a few that we're missing there. Definitely a special thanks to Holland Project and Mary Ortega from Reno Clean and Safe. She is the outreach coordinator there, and lots of community volunteers. All right, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, as we mentioned 2 slides ago, one of the issues that comes up in a cold place like Reno, obviously, is death due to just exposure to elements in the wintertime. And we figured a lot of, this is not a model that we invented. A lot of cold cities do things like this, where you have a separate facility that's just set up in the wintertime. And Reno has had this over the years, actually. Basically a place for people to be warm just at nighttime. And it's usually a lower barrier shelter than other places. Our most direct model is actually, it's called Knott's Night Off the Streets. It's been operating in Carson City for quite a long time. And Father Chuck here is involved with that. Basically, you know, it seems like a pretty easy problem to solve. Nobody dies sleeping outside in the wintertime. Because Reno is a smallish city, it seems actually like we thought we could achieve 0 deaths or close to 0. You know, over the years, there's usually been somewhere in the high 90s, low hundreds, which seems, you know, pretty unacceptable for a city like this. So we thought that we would limit the focus to single women because this was a pilot project. And so we obviously understood that we needed to keep the scope a little bit easier for us to handle. We also know that the CARES campus, which would be where a lot of people would go in the wintertime these days to stay warm, is for various reasons generally a place that a lot of single women won't go to ever, wintertime, summertime, daytime, nighttime. And we figured we needed to create an alternative space, right, another resource. So we provided 25 beds over the course of about, and I think the next slide will cover this, 3 months. And yeah, right here. So we provided 25 beds over the course of 3 months that were open from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. only. And it would rotated through the churches over that time period. And I'll have Ben go over exactly kind of how we made that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing, Rise was one of the main fiscal sponsors here. So we had voted early in August and donated $30,000 to get that launched. Lily, who couldn't be here today, and Ilya met with faith leaders to get the MOU signed. Essentially, Rise would provide the liability insurance and the staffing and the training for community volunteers. And then these guys did all the other heavy lifting. The logistics of this was pretty phenomenal, and honestly, tip my hat to everybody involved. The process, there was a weekly schedule that changed over every Tuesday. Again, Holland Project lent us their van so that we can move all of our equipment, our supplies, et cetera, to the next facility. Outreach was done at the Family Soup Mutual Aid, which is a weekly distribution potluck that happens here out in the circle. The Hampton House, Laundry to the People, and then word of mouth in this community is a big deal as well. We also connected with people at the City of Reno, Washoe County, CARES Campus, hospitals, REMSA, private security, and our place as well. So there's a lot of coordination there. Next slide, please.
Yeah, next slide. Thank you. Yeah, and like I said, 25 cots. So we had a pretty hard ceiling earlier in the winter when the project was getting off the ground. We only had a few people, but by the end, by March, I think 10th or 11th, when we closed the warming center, it was often mostly full. It just took a little while for word to spread, obviously. There were always some trained staff, right? So even though this was 90% volunteer run, there were trained staff that were provided by Rise who were there all night long and kind of overseed things. And we're obviously going to be the go-to point person if there was an issue. As far as the help, we had basically community members doing laundry. We had a lot of the congregations really did a really awesome job helping provide volunteers. Also, a lot of meals were cooked so that in the morning when people had to wake up and leave, right, they were kind of given like a burrito or something like that on their way. And one of the main takeaways from this project, and this is like actually one of the core One of the reasons we're even doing this presentation is that we had 0 calls for service over the whole 3 months, right? So a call for service, if you don't know, is just, somebody calls the cops or somebody calls the ambulance. That's basically, I'm not sure off the top of my head, I'm not sure that there's been a single day at the CARES campus where there hasn't been a call for service. It's, obviously very common in homeless services, right? For there to be some law enforcement or REMSA involvement at the warming center, right? This was 3 months. I'm not sure how many nights that is, but there were no calls for service, right? So the cops never had to get called, an ambulance was never called. And we think that that is a really important statistic, right? Because it does show that there are kind of alternative models for providing care. It doesn't mean that, that's always going to be the case, obviously, but we do feel like it's encouraging because it, first of all, it helps people in the community like yourselves. We would love to see volunteering, right? Feel safe and know that, this is something you can do. This is a volunteer opportunity that actually is safe both for the people staying there and for the people helping out. But it does also help combat one of the main things that we're often dealing with, which is stigma, especially kind of downtown. A lot of the people, right, that we encountered who stayed overnight were not, they weren't doing great, but all they really needed was a place to rest, right? Which is right now, given the fact that it's more and more difficult to legally sleep anywhere in the city, right? Or to legally even be homeless in Reno. It's very difficult to kind of quote unquote get your act together, right, if you can't sleep. So that was really a really big part of this project, just giving people a place to rest. So one of the reasons we had 0 calls for service is because people showed up, went to sleep, and that was it, right? There wasn't a lot going on. So it was safe. And we did build relationships with people because we had people coming back, right? So once you kind of get to know someone, like there's obviously a built-in safety there because they know you, you know them, they can come in without even, necessarily having to go through a long intake process because they've already been there for 10, 20, 30 nights. So that also actually helped to create a safe environment. On a related note, we tried to keep a very high standard for cleanliness and hygiene. We were washing stuff as often as we could. We provided the bedding, which is an important component that we got from the KNOTS program in Carson City, right? Meaning so people are not bringing in their own bedding. They leave their stuff. The different churches have different sort of logistical setups for this, but basically they leave their stuff in a separate area so we can avoid bed bugs, any other kind of hygiene issues. We provide cots, we provide sleeping bags, and because we are providing them, we can wash them regularly and know that they're clean. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is basically just a breakdown of a few things, and we're going to talk about one other thing on this slide. But we had a variety of guests. Some people that just came for one night, some people that basically stayed the whole time. Some people that stayed for a week. This is a breakdown. It's the one data piece here that we will talk about is, and Ben can talk a little bit. Do you want to talk about HMIS real quick? So
Yeah,
people
sure.
know? Yeah.
So for those who are unfamiliar, HMIS stands for the Homeless Management Information System. That's the regional database that all unsheltered service providers use to put guest or client data in, and then we track the services that they access here in town. Pretty much any organizer funded outreach agency uses this. I think we're at like 95% of agencies here in this community use that tool to track services. So it's pretty effective, and the data is usually pretty accurate.
Yeah, so if you're going to CARES or you're going to our place, like it's not really optional, and it's just basically a way for different agencies to kind of communicate with each other. Because we were using RISE's kind of HMIS, we were not doing. One of the reasons that this program I think was also effective is there was not a long intake. Some providers, shelter providers, you have a long intake service. So we did not have a very long intake process because it just felt like it would be counterintuitive to have someone show up to sleep and then like have to sit for 2 hours and fill out an application and then they can get to bed. But we were running people through to see. One thing we obviously had to run people through if there were any red flags that came up in the system, right? But also just to see if they had been in the system. Now, if you have ever accessed any services in this region, you would be in there. And 23 of the people that we saw did not pop up in HMIS. So what that said to us is that these are people who are willing and ready to take advantage of a resource that's available once it's the right one to fit their needs. And we are really struggling right now against a prevalent narrative in the region and in the city in particular, that there's all these services. And the problem is that the people don't want to use them, right? That like, the problem isn't the services, the problem isn't, you know, what the city or the county are offering. It's that you have service resistant clients, so to speak, right? Who just want to be outside and, you know, don't want to get their act together, what, you know, however you phrase it, the idea being that the problem is with them, not with the services. We felt like this data actually says the opposite, that if you provide the right kind of service for the right population, they will access it. The fact that 23 of the people, right, this was not their first night in Reno, right? They were staying somewhere because they were single women. They were probably hiding somewhere downtown, right, where they could be safe and feel like they wouldn't be harassed or worse, right? But they did access this service. They came out of, you know, whatever kind of private zone they had created for themselves, and they chose this as something that they could trust. So we thought that that was very encouraging. We hope that, you know, we continue to reach people who are not accessing other services, right? And that's our hope for the program moving forward. Next slide. This is just how many people were involved, right? Which is a lot, right? We had hundreds of volunteers. I mean, we split it up into 3 shifts per night, like 9 to midnight, midnight to 3, 3 to 6. You know, some people would do longer shifts, but over the course of the period, we had, over 400 signups. It doesn't mean that we had 400 individual volunteers, but we did have, I think, maybe near 100 individual volunteers. I'm not really sure. Next slide.
Finances, sure. I can go through it really fast. So for the 84 days that we were in operation, total cost to us was a little over 30,000. You can see that most of that was for personnel. Liability insurance was actually pretty low. Good amount went to just supplies and equipment, really. And then it was offset by about 7,000 through community donations. So 23K, a little over for about 3 months. And the next slide, please. We'll go over, it might be later on.
Yeah, maybe you can probably, I think I talked about this stuff, honestly. Skip next slide. This is probably.
Oh, I thought it was going to show cost per bed night. It's pretty low. It's pretty low.
We had a few versions of the presentation, so maybe this was not that one, but yeah.
Yeah, my apologies. Cost per bed night comparatively to our place, CARES Campus, and even just national standards is significantly lower. So that was, 20,000, a little over, or 30,000 total. Sounds like a big number, but I mean, honestly, that's for 1 quarter of the year. So that's actually pretty cheap.
If I remember, yeah, the cost for bed night, and we can check up on this later, was like maybe a quarter of the cost for bed night at CARES or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. It was very low. And that's given the fact that there were almost we didn't provide anything, right? As far as like beyond blankets and a cot, right? So we, neither does CARES, generally speaking. Other people will usually come in to provide food, but so meaning that's basically the same level of services in a much smaller facility, but higher level of quality of care, obviously, for about a quarter of the cost.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at what, 120,000 for the year. Those are pennies, really, comparatively. So, I didn't mean to skip over the last couple of slides. If we
you can just go ahead. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably stuff we already covered. Yeah, I mean, we can just go to the conclusion and talk about kind of, I mean, basically, there's a plan to do this winter because obviously the need has not really changed. We really hope to expand the program with more partners. That could be other churches or other facilities. They don't have to be churches. The churches happen to often be the most convenient for a variety of reasons. One is that, the faith communities tend to have a model of service and community care. So usually they're kind of willing to do this sort of thing, but also they often have a building that's not used at nighttime, right? With maybe more room. But there's other churches that we haven't involved yet in other regions of the city as well, right? This is not just an issue in Ward 1. And we would love to just expand the base of volunteers. A lot of the volunteers, came from the congregations and some of the mutual aid groups, but there's no reason why. I mean, that being said, there actually were just a lot of people we had never met before that we met, that kind of heard about the program, signed up to do a shift. We're working on making the shifts a little bit more exciting. They were a little boring, there wasn't much to do, you're just sitting there trying to stay awake, basically. So hopefully this year we can, you know, work on there being a little bit, just easing the burden on volunteers to be up all night. We also just always need volunteers doing other things, you know, like whether it's coordinating food. And then obviously the main thing we do need to do is we do need to continue raising money to fund it. And we have a little bit more time this year to kind of get some of that going. But one of the ways we funded it is actually, we didn't have any individual like big donors, like Rise obviously provided the biggest chunk, but we actually raised money kind of pretty grassroots because the need for money was not that high. So we could basically fund it, you know, just asking people to donate $100 here and there. And we like that model, you know, because it does feel better to kind of get the whole community involved rather than having to like depend on a few individual donors to keep it running, especially if they change their mind.
And in-kind goods too.
Yeah, in-kind goods, whether that's sleeping bags, cots, you know, hygiene kits, food, things like that are also very helpful. We'd love to expand it, right? To include not just single women. It's, you know, things just get tricky, you know, depending on the population that you're trying to serve. We would love to be able to serve pets and things like that, but we would probably need more willing facilities, so we could maybe even have separate facilities and keep the staffing needs lower. But I think, is this last slide, Callie? Maybe the next slide. Yeah, this QR code might go to something that's no longer active because this is from when we were doing the presentations earlier on. But if you want to write it down, the email address, which may or may not be anywhere on there, is just Good Neighbors Reno.
Good Neighbors Reno.
At gmail.com. Very easy to remember. Yeah, Good Neighbors Reno at gmail.com. And like I said, we've started conversations with the churches. We really want to thank them for coming today too. And I'm sure if you have any questions for them as well, they're here. This is just 2 of the churches, of course, not all of them. But the program is getting started soon. So we would love to hear from anyone that wants to be involved and, you know, let your community know. And I think with that, we're open to any questions.
Dalton T. Kaysen for the record. Thank you. Everything you're doing seems like it's helping the community a lot, especially the unhoused people. So thank you so much. And I'll open it up to the rest of the board.
Yeah, it does sound like a very good program. And I was doing quick math and I believe I came up with $14 a day per bed that you guys average, so that it seems like a very reasonable cost. That's
I
very,
think that sounds about right. Yeah.
yeah, very impressive. Was there any lessons learned that you took from last year that you're going to incorporate this year and maybe, you know, share with the other organizations?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
We had a few. I mean, one was we did very little intake, which was really important to kind of lower the barrier. We would probably like to do a little bit more data gathering because our data is very, I would say, like superficial in a way, right? We were intentionally not really gathering a lot of data about people. But we lost track of, you know, like all the people that came, right? They kind of just sort of are scattered and, you know, hopefully we'll see them again. But it would be good, you know, if we'd be able to sort of build a little bit more relationships with people. We did see, for example, over the time they were staying there that, you know, especially some people that showed up pretty, you know, out of it, so to speak, after a week were actually like significantly easier to communicate with. And, you know, we could see the positive impact of just sleeping regularly and having regular sleep schedule. We didn't really have anything at the end of that to sort of, you know, like a next step or anything like that, right? So I think being a little bit more intentional with that. Obviously that wouldn't be just on us, right? That would be kind of working with other agencies and stuff to kind of, because at the end of the program, it was like, okay, warming center's done, you know, back to like normal life for everybody, which may be, you know, a few steps back, which is unfortunate, right? We kind of would love people kind of moving forward. So we need to talk about that. That's one lesson learned for sure. We also, I would say, generally speaking, the coordination with some of the local services like the ambassadors was not great. And, you know, I don't speak for the whole you know, all the volunteers or the churches, but personally, I didn't have a great experience working with the ambassadors. They weren't as helpful as they could have been. So hopefully we can improve that because it does take some coordination. For example, there was often people who had mobility issues, like in wheelchairs, that were just far enough away where it was kind of difficult to get them there. And we were kind of trying to work with the ambassadors on that. But I don't know, MOU, so to speak, with them didn't really exist. So that was not very smooth. So we'd love for that to be better this year because getting people there sometimes is a challenge. I don't know. Anything else, Ben?
No, I think you nailed both of them. More regional coordination. I think this time, now that we've had one successful year, and I feeling really confident that it's, as long as the demand exists, then we're going to continue. I don't believe we're going to solve, homelessness here in the next few years personally. So we'll probably keep being here. So better regional coordination and communication, and then aftercare plans. I mean, again, obviously with the facility shutting down in the morning, it's hard to provide case management. It's hard to provide a lot of those next steps when you don't have a place to do that in. But I do know that with some of our better partnerships up at CASAT and UNR Public Health, and then some of the partnerships we're creating with the state and the county, we might be able to bring in more resources so that it isn't such a hard stop. When the shelter's over, then that's it, right? So, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. I think you nailed it.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for the speaker?
Yeah, just one question. When they're finished at the warming center in the morning, you're saying about more coordination. Are these people knowing that they could can they still go to the CARES campus and get other services other than sleeping? And then was that
Yeah,
a
yeah,
plan?
yeah.
or
At the
an ability?
time, I'm not sure what the coordination is going to be with Our Place moving forward. At the time, Our Place was still ran by Rise, and so the communication was pretty good because there was, some agency overlap, and we did have some people, who kind of went from there to Our Place. Issue was always sort of, the reason the warming centers existed was actually often because Our Place was already full, so they wouldn't have had a bed for them anyway. And as far as other services, I do know, that the CARES campus has opened, more facilities now since we're kind of open last winter, as far as like the Welcome Center and some other things like that. People didn't know about it. I mean, I will say that this particular population is probably the least likely to go there, just because of safety concerns, and I mean, oftentimes the people that we're serving, I think they were people who tended to be, I would say, like the layperson's term is loners, these were definitely people who did not want to be around a lot of other people, especially in that environment. And the CARES environment is really not a great fit for people who don't want to stand in a line, who don't want to be around 500 to 600 people, so they knew about it. I mean, people definitely know, but I think a lot of the times, I mean, people, you don't really know how these kinds of games of telephone sort of work, but oftentimes people, a place might have a really bad reputation, right? And so you might never even go there, even if you have if they have the thing that you need, you might never end up there because things you've heard, right? So I would say that the CARES campus does not have a great reputation, whatever services it does provide, and its reputation is probably the worst with this particular demographic.
If I can follow up on that for a little bit. So for those who are unfamiliar with Rise, we operated the Our Place shelter for 5 years since 2020. And the contract was just turned over to the Volunteers of America this past July. But prior to Our Place opening, the only unsheltered center was the CAC down on 4th and Record Street. And that's where the men, women, and family shelters were located. The reason as a community that we separated the men and the women's population is because women were not going to shelters where men were staying. And this, trigger warning, a lot of that is because, my experience, 80+% of the women that we were serving at Our Place were survivors in one form or another. So even if something's not happening at CARES campus or at the campus directly, by exposing yourself there to your potential abuser or former pimp or friends of friends, then you let yourself be known, and then you go back into the real world, and then the real world still exists, and we don't have security cameras and security, etc. So that is one of the main reasons a lot of women will avoid that place, is because they're avoiding the people in it.
started, they were supposed to be very helpful to this kind of a situation. That was the whole point of it. So it's very disconcerting that they're more busy picking up trash than taking care of human beings. So I would probably go to them and find out why is it this way and it's not supposed to be. But
Yeah, we
I
hope
would
to,
think I would just get on their case.
yeah, we hope to work on that a little bit more, like kind of do more coordinating with them, because we kind of just, honestly, this, the warming center was an idea we had had for a long time, and then in December of 2024, it sort of very rapidly came together when kind of we just, I don't know, Father Chuck was able to rally the churches and we were like, okay, it's already cold, let's do it, So we didn't really have a lot of time to like kind of establish those relationships beforehand. We were kind of doing it on the fly. So yeah, I think this year we are hoping to refocus the ambassadors, on their mission here. We obviously are not going to change sort of any agency, like, inner issues that they may or may not have, but we do hope to have a positive relationship with them, keep it limited to, you're going to help get people to the warming center, you're going to help get them there. So yeah, we're going to try to do that, and as well as other kind of interagency stuff a little bit more beforehand. Last year, we kind of just, we just fell into it, so we didn't really have that much time to prepare.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the speakers? All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so
Thank you
much.
so much.
And public comment on this?
I do have Damien in Zoom. There you go. Damien, whenever you're ready, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Damien Barrientos, and I love this. I think this is a great idea. Last year, so I work at Tesla. I work 12-hour shifts. Last year, during the harsh, cold winter, I was leaving early in the morning for my shift, 4:30 a.m. I go out to my car, and the homeless woman approaches me, fingerless gloves, jacket, beanie, and she's shaking, and she holds out a small alcohol bottle to me, and she says, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you. Can you please open this for me? And I could smell the alcohol on her breath, and she was clearly intoxicated. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I think you need help, actually, and I don't think you should drink anymore. And, that was not the response she wanted. And she turned away and started yelling racial slurs and throwing a massive fit. And it just was not a great start to my work day, as you can imagine. And, kind of, it made me feel bad, and I felt sad, and I felt sorry for her. And I was like, dang, I really wish, like there was somewhere she could go. So I love this idea. I think this is great. If I had more free time, I'll see if I can't donate my time. Maybe I could donate some money to it. Recently a homeless woman, I don't know if you guys saw on the news, was staying with a 72-year-old man, and she stabbed him. And then, maybe if it's not cold right now, but, maybe right now it's just starts as a winter warming center, but maybe it evolves into a year-round women's protection center. We need to protect our women out here, and, keep them safe and let them know, hey, there is somewhere where you can get away from toxic men or abusive men. Maybe they come from abusive relationships or whatever, domestic violence of the sorts, right? So when they go to this warming center, and actually I have a question. So when they go to the warming center, so you guys are not really collecting a whole lot of data on them?
One moment.
Ilya Arbman for the record, Damien. No, I mean, we're getting their name, we're running them through HMIS, we're making sure that, there's no red flags, but no, there's no application process, there's no intake that takes longer than a few minutes. That's kind of by design. Like I said, we're kind of hoping to change that a little bit, but no, part of the reason being we kind of just want people to show up and be able to go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great and totally understandable. But I think if we could just collect a little bit of data while they're there, that would be great. Like, hey, what brings you in today? And then kind of, are they trying to get away from an abusive partner? Are they trying to get away from a spouse or whoever it may be? And then we can kind of get other parties involved, whether it be law enforcement or whoever, et cetera. So we can, if they are coming from domestic violence, we can, turn them over to law enforcement and have law enforcement lock up, arrest that individual who is abusing them or whatever it may be. Or if they're dealing with alcoholism or drug abuse, then we can kind of, send them over to a rehabilitation center. I'm not too familiar with the rehabilitation centers that we have out here, but do you guys do that?
Your time is out for now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that a lot.
Thanks.
Damien, if you want to reach out to the warming center again, their email is goodneighborsreno@gmail.com. Okay. With that said, I do not have any additional public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And sorry, Damon, to cut you off there. We're just trying to give everyone the same amount of time here. And then we'll move on to this concludes the business items. Are there any board member reports or announcements? Nobody has anything this time? No? Okay. Then future agenda items. Anybody got anything they want to?
Sunny Allen, record. There are some areas downtown, obviously particularly where I live and my neighbors live. There are no meters on the streets at all. And in the past, I've reached out to the traffic department and not gotten a lot of response. But question if we can have someone come and we can speak to them about why there are blocks and areas in downtown that don't have meters, because sometimes that is a deterrent to people abandoning their cars or things like that. And that's a definite concern for the residents in the building that I live in. So if they can come and talk to us and we can suggest areas, that would be great.
Sure. Like a presentation from parking enforcement or something like that?
Oh, and installation of meters. I don't know what department.
Sure.
You'll know better than me, but I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Very sure for the record, I have one. Is there any way that we can get anybody who represents Washoe County Crossroads in here to kind of explain to us how and why the reasoning and their metrics that they use to decide where they're going to place their transitional housing in Reno? Because they don't engage the community at all when they drop these transitional housing in a neighborhood. They just drop them. And they're bringing in, all different kinds of people, from families to, to those, those are recovering from a drug and alcohol programs and homelessness, also their stuff. Then they're dropping these programs right into our neighborhoods without engaging the community. We want to know, we kind of like to see if we can figure out what the metrics are that they use, where they decide to drop these places, because I've reached out to the city and the city says, because they're county run programs, all that they can do is issue business permits. And then that's the only regulation they have over them. So I think there needs to be maybe a conversation with the county. I mean, I understand homelessness and this kind of stuff is a big issue, but they need to kind of involve the communities that are dropping these programs into these campuses. They're just dropping them. So
Sure.
if we can get somebody from Crossroads or Rise or whoever's running these programs, that would be great too.
Yeah, we can definitely reach out to Washoe County Crossroads.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Got any agenda items?
Mike Steeman for the record. So the future agenda items, same as the ones in the past that we haven't, and the ones we talked about today. And it looks like we probably need to hear from the ambassadors too.
No problem.
Oh, I got
On
a
the
good
list.
one though. So, we have the old brewery, we have the brewery district. Okay. And you go to a lot of cities, and even here, they'll say, wine's this way, breweries are this way, baseball's this way from the freeway, so you know where you're going. We really don't have anything to bring people down to that part of that district in our NAP. So I've been harping on people and I'll even pay for the sign. I was thinking just putting a yellow shirt on and just put one up. But if we could try to find a way that we can get a sign out on the freeway that points to the brewery district.
Okay. Might need to reach out to NDOT on that one. We'll figure it out and follow up.
Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Any other future agenda items anyone wants to bring up? No? All right, then I turned it off, sorry. I'll move on to public comment. Are there any other public comments?
I don't have any public comment, but if there's anyone in chambers or on Zoom who would like to raise their hand to provide comment. We have Damien.
Oh.
All right. Go ahead, Damien.
Hey, thank you so much. This is Damien Barrientos speaking. One more thing I wanted to say real quick, in regards to the more child care, businesses, I guess you would say. Yeah, we absolutely, I think I agree. We should make it more transparent. I don't know if we should make it cheaper. But again, I don't know all the details. I have to look into it. But if we had more childcare centers, then maybe the parents of Isabella Loving, may she rest in peace. I doubt it, but maybe they would have brought their kids to a childcare, a small one of 5 to 12 children, and then somebody would have seen the bruises or injuries or noticed the signs of child neglect, and she would still be here with us today. So yeah, I definitely think we should make it more transparent and easier, more childcare centers. But I'm not sure if we, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Damian. Would anyone else like to give public comment? All right, no
Okay.
further public comment.
And we just want to take a moment to thank everybody who came to present and witness and all that as well, community members and board members alike. On that, I would like to move to item G, which is adjournment. I'm now looking to adjourn our meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Sunny Allen, motion.
Great. Can I get a second, please?
Claudia Davis, second.
Claudia Davis.
Great. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. This concludes Ward 1 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. Thank you.